You're listening to another episode of the Ana Vivo podcast. Thank you for your time.
You know what time it is. You know what this means. This is a high energy DJ mix with your host, that's me, Tim C. Miller of the Ana Vivo podcast. You're listening to another episode right here in the month of January. And we are doing one on something interesting. So what I'm going to do before I tell you the topic is I'm just going to read to you.
They already know the topic.
No,
they saw the title.
No, stop. No title. Also, let me introduce you to Sizzly Steve. Sizzly Steve, you're on the air. What'd it do? Okay. In that day, the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent.
No. Read the account from Job.
No, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Don't interrupt the Holy Scriptures. In that day, the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, with his fierce and great and mighty sword, even Leviathan, the twisted serpent, and he will kill the dragon who lives in the sea. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, next. Let those curse it who curse the day, who are prepared to rouse Leviathan. Let the stars of its twilight be darkened. Let it wait for the light, but have none, and let it not see the breaking.
What are these? What are you reading? No, read it from Job. Job describes it. Here, let me get you here.
This is scripture. That was Job.
Behold,
that was
its
Job 3:8.
strength in its loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. His heart is as firm as a stone, and his heart is a piece of the nether milestone. When he rises up, the mighty are afraid by reason of breaking their purify.
Okay.
By reason of breaking. They purify themselves. Okay. Yeah. He drinks up the river without difficulty. He thrusts that cannot be drawn up the Jordan in the mouth. Who can draw out the Leviathan with a hook? Nothing. You know, he's got like scales that are like shields. Every time he snorts, fire comes out, you know? Stuff like that. You gotta like do this.
All right. You're reading from Job as well. I read from the beginning of Job. You're at the end of Job. And then the one before that I read from was from Isaiah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. A big boy. His legs are like timbers.
The timbers.
Of iron.
Timbers of iron. Yeah, so that's our topic for today is the Leviathan and the Loch Ness Monster. And specifically, what we wanted to talk about, first of all, I wanted to introduce back on the show, this week only, Sizzly Steve. And we are talking about the Leviathan and the Loch Ness Monster and maybe other creatures like that. Who can really say?
This week only, did I lose my subscription to Ana Vivo?
You're losing your co-hosting seat here by the fireplace. Okay, it is very windy out while Steven gathers his thoughts here. It is very windy. The day is blustery, and but it's not very wet thanks to the Olympic rain shadow. So we've got a lot of wind, but it's dry, which is nice. All right. That has been your weather update. Sizzly Steve. Cool. So what do we want to talk about in the scripture there specifically with the Leviathan?
So what I'm thinking is people are talking about, you know,
these creatures, the Mothman that we did the YouTube short on the other day, all sorts of different things, random things.
The Loch Ness Monster, massive sea creature.
Pleiadorodon.
The Pleiadorodon. And the Bible talks about the Leviathan when the very first time it ever talks about it was with Job. And God talks to Job and says, listen, I made the Leviathan mighty and dangerous. Who can control him?
Right.
And that's the very first instance.
Who can pull him out with a hook?
Yeah, but when have we ever seen the Leviathan ever again? And is it just one creature or is it a whole species?
Right.
And is the Loch Ness Monster the Leviathan?
One of them. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we look at the description in Job and you read the description there, the belly, the legs, the neck, I mean, it all seems to point, scholars have said it would most likely be a plesiosaurus type creature. Something that's obviously living in the water, so it's a water creature. But there's also been scholars that have said it's a crocodile, just a massive crocodile. So,
Yeah, but what crocodiles snort fire?
And have legs like cedars. So
out of his mouth go flaming torches, sparks of fire leap forth.
Right.
I mean,
almost every culture has these myths of dragons that have that ability. And so I would, you look at the medieval times, even it was a knight's most noblest duty to go out and kill a dragon. And that's when you gained your knighthood. And so there's a very real chance that these beasts that are now extinct, obviously, because who wants dragons living in your forest, eating your sheep, or destroying your castles, or living in the water that you're trying to fish at? Who wants these things just living around? So there's a very real chance that these were all hunted to extinction, purposely, intentionally. I'm sure that mercenaries, sailors, ships would go out and hunt them like they did whaling expeditions. They would do sea dragon expeditions, and so and come back with to collect the bounty and stuff like that. So, what do you guys think, listeners? There is an option for you to respond back to us via email at tim.c.miller@outlook.com or on our Facebook page, or on Instagram, or wherever you want to respond back to this episode directly as well. But what's interesting to us is this concept of these beasts that are no longer with us, and yet we still see in sculpture, in writings, on actual maps, the existence of these creatures. And it's not just a particular society either. It's multiple different societies that have these, similar to dinosaurs, right? Every culture has their dinosaur paintings and sculptures and things like that too. So
I just had a great conversation with our father, who we share.
You and me?
Yeah, we share that.
We do share that.
Yep.
One thing in common, at least.
Well, there's two parents, so
okay, two things in common.
Two things in common. We were talking about the history of sailors and how they used to store their food in lead jars.
Oh, that's healthy.
Isn't that healthy? And so we came to the same conclusion that
they all just went mad.
They all went mad, and that's where all these
sea
famous, sea stories come from. Oh, we saw our mast light on fire, and the whole sail lit up, and then it went out, and all of a sudden we just kept sailing. And it's like, okay, I think you're going crazy from lead poisoning.
You're just high.
Or we saw this giant sea serpent the size of,
Right. And it's just a dude that pulled up an octopus on his fishing line.
Yeah. And you've just ate too many peaches out of the lead jar.
Yeah.
So,
so are you saying that, are you suggesting that the images we find in Scripture,
they did not use lead jars that early in Scripture? So that verse is from Job, which
was one of the oldest.
Is one of the oldest. However,
undated. Yeah.
I think because it talks about, there's some verses in there that make me think it's a lot newer than
we're led to believe.
Anyways, lead jars were not used any time the Bible was written. But as for like the other books, Odyssey and that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. where they're hearing mermaids and sirens calling you to
Exactly.
the sea, and
Yeah,
the Selkies of the Welsh land.
all the food they're eating is out
Yeah.
of a lead jar.
They're just
which-
horny and high, is what we're
Exactly.
realizing.
Their brain is slowly deteriorating. They're just
I saw
sucking on
a
lead chips.
manatee, and I haven't seen a woman in 3 years since I've been at sea, and I don't have Twitter. So that's probably a mermaid.
yes, and in reality,
And my peaches from the lead jar make me sure that that's a woman.
that poor sailor man is like, please stay away from me.
Yeah, yeah. Going over
Um,
there to tackle manatees.
but yeah, so let me tell you about the Loch Ness monster, which it doesn't really have that many similarities because it's more of a Pleodorodon.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just saying. You know, some of the scholars from the biblical text would argue that it was a plesiosaurus that it's describing. Some would say the alligator, but others would say the plesiosaurus. Obviously not with the fire, but with the body style, the water, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So let me.
As a kid, I was very intrigued in finding the Loch Ness monster. It's sort of like, at least when I was growing up, it was our generation's like last living mystery thing. It was like so relevant. People were still having sightings as a kid. For
It
me,
was so relevant, like you knew it was out there.
well, like people were like having sightings right now, as opposed to these other creatures where like back in 1920 this thing happened. Like no, this was happening right now in the 90s, in the 80s, in the early 2000s. People were still getting these grainy footages. You know, nobody had cell phones, right? So nobody's out there in
the
my
early stages of computer.
right. So I'm out there in my kid mind. I'm like, man, I could be out there. We could just get a whole boat, a line of boats with nets, and just sort of go across the lake methodically and dredge up whatever we can find. And then I read something about how they did that with sonar floor mapping, and they found all of these actual locks. That's why they call it the locks, is because it was like a massive flood happened. Weird that then caused all of these rifts in the ground throughout the country there, and then when the ocean receded, it left these locks, these really deep fissures in the earth full of water. And so when they were doing the sonar mapping, it made it look like this creature could have actually been hiding anywhere in there, because there's all these crevices and underwater cave systems and things like that that are in this lake. It's not just a big sandy bottom. And fishermen have found these big bones. People have found these big plesiosaurus bones washed up on the side of the lake there and stuff like that. So it was always really fascinating to me to think about, you know, how late one of these creatures could still be living in the lake there.
So the first occurrence of the Loch Ness monster was in the 20th century, 1933. It's called the Surgeon's Photograph. Depicted a long-necked creature emerging from the loch, ignited global intrigue. So it's in, where are we here? It's the Sottish Highlands, freshwater loch.
Very well said.
They nicknamed it the Nessie.
Because of Loch Ness.
And there was just this famous photograph that showed this long-necked creature emerging from the water, essentially.
And this was back when photographs were first invented, so it's perfect.
Yeah, and so someone painted on their photograph and sent it to all their buddies on Facebook.
Before Photoshop.
And then after that, there was no definitive proof, obviously.
Right,
But
obviously.
after that, photographs just started exploding
Mm-hmm.
up and down, you know.
Money talks, everything else walks.
Yeah.
How much money can I get for this photograph of Nessie?
And it turned the area of Scotland into a massive global enigma, whatever.
Tourist zone.
Yeah, tourist
Yeah.
zone. So,
Huh.
so that started in the 1930s. New technological advancements in drones and underwater drones have offered no new evidence.
Weird.
The Loch Ness is more than just a body of water.
Mm-hmm.
So Loch Ness is that body of water that like Tim was saying, locks, is where it was first discovered.
Yeah.
It's more than a body of water. It's canvas painted with history, mystery, and captivating lore.
Wait, are you saying that's what this is?
That's
not,
what the
more,
Loch Ness is.
It's more than a body of water. It's a canvas painted with history and lore.
Yes.
Oh, how
Yeah,
romantic.
yeah. Despite the lack of proof, the legend of Loch Ness continues to capture imaginations and inspire creativity.
In the Highlands of Scotland, superstition? No way.
Yes. So no proof, just very grainy photos. And of course, no one knows what it looks like, but we all think it looks like that one Pokemon that you can surf on.
That's what we think of.
We all know what we're talking about. 4 fins, 4 long fins.
Yeah, they just copied
long neck.
the Aplodon.
Exactly. So.
Well, that's interesting. You know, our parents named our dog after Mokele Mbembe, which is another sort of mystery-esque creature in the Congo region of Africa that even to this day people are finding evidence of or have seen, have claimed to see, and have interviewed all of these tribes that have found evidence of Mokele Mbembe, which is this dinosaur running around in the Congo, and leaving evidence there. But I don't think there's any evidence really. I think there's just as much evidence as there is for Nessie, but maybe a little bit more. It's certainly Mokele Mbembe is certainly more relevant in history than or recent in history than Nessie.
Yeah, apparently Mokele Mbembe is also an aquatic creature.
Who knew? The hardest to find. Weird.
Yes.
If you didn't want your people bathing often, I would tell them there's sea monsters in there too to keep the kids away from killing themselves and drowning. Don't go near the edge, Timmy. Mokele Mbembe. What did Dad just say? Mokele Mbembe. Yeah, that would be the story I came up with to keep the kids away from playing in the water.
Well, some scientists believe it's a sauropod dinosaur, so it's not like it's some crazy creature out there. It just survived the meteorite.
Sure, yeah, just like Nessie.
Yeah. It's the one thing that survived the meteorite, and it's just been living.
Yeah, just living on its own without reproduction capabilities.
Which, you know, much like the Leviathan, although the Leviathan was an ocean-dwelling creature, so who knows where its bones could be.
Yeah.
But as for the Loch Ness, it's just that one lock. I mean, dredge it.
That's what I was saying as a kid. Like, line up all the boats, drop your nets, go. Right?
Yeah, right.
But
as for like the Leviathan, I mean, you're not going to dredge the entire ocean, or even the Mokele Mbembe. I mean,
Moki.
And
oddly
not
enough,
going to be able to dredge the whole Congo.
No, and our dog that the parents had, which was a Rhodesian Ridgeback, but like a bastard child of the Rhodesian Ridgebacks, she wasn't abused, was she? She just came from a poor litter somewhere? Do you remember the story where Mom and Dad
we
got
picked her up? I was with her. She was the only like female out of the litter.
Something was wrong with her where she just had massive amounts of anxiety.
Yeah.
And so she was anything but Mokele Mbembe. Like, she was just very skittish, not your typical Rhodesian Ridgeback at all. So it was funny that was her name.
Yeah. She puked the whole way home when we got her.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So sea creatures.
I think the conclusion here, sea creatures.
Yes. Massive mysteries of these sea creatures.
Sure.
And where do we find them? I mean, why haven't we found their bones?
You know, honestly, I think more along the lines of the theory of the Meg with
Are
Jason
they still
Statham.
reproducing? So the Meg,
Jason Statham, and they live in the ocean. They live in this thermocline layer that's so deep it forms its own dividing wall between our ocean and the great.
but it doesn't
deep.
make sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
No,
Have you seen the
because
movie?
I literally just watched it with Ben, unfortunately.
What do you mean,
because such a
unfortunately? It's
horrible
hilarious.
movie.
Plus, Dwight from The Office is the boss and gets eaten.
Wait!
Spoiler
it
alert.
falls off the edge. Yeah. No, it's a shark with a What are those things called in fish?
A belly.
The ballast or whatever, where they like have air that lets them go up and down.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You can't go that deep. You just can't go that deep
Why?
because you have an air pocket in your belly.
Sharks do?
Yeah.
Oh, real sharks do? Like in real life?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, but how do we know the Meg does?
Because
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Meg's a big shark. I thought.
They have huge teeth. We've never actually seen one. It could be like this just massive precursor to.
It just looks exactly like a shark.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, think about it. The sperm whale can dive to incredible depths, right?
What is the fish sack called?
The fish sack. The narwhal. All of these other creatures can dive very, very deep.
No, narwhals cannot dive that deep.
Okay, but the
Narwhals are just like dolphins.
no, the other one I just said, the other whale, the sperm whale can.
How deep? The swim bladder.
The swim bladder. That's
Swim
the
bladder.
official name.
They cannot go. They can't.
Okay, Google how fast. Hey Allegra, how fast can
The kids are just playing.
how deep can the sperm whale dive to? Incredible depths. They have scars when they return to the surface of battles with massive
Megalodons?
No, massive octopus, which is what they eat. They dive that deep to go hunt the kraken. Essentially, that's their main diet. And when they return to the surface, they're all scarred up along their face from the tentacles and the fight that they just had with these massive, colossal squids. So, they're down there doing the world's work, fighting off the sea beast.
4,000 feet.
Yeah, 4,000 feet. How deep is a mile? How long is a mile?
5,000 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
How deep is the Meg going?
Mariana Trench.
Yeah, whatever that
Below
means.
the thermocline. These creatures live there, bro. We have explored so little of the world's oceans.
Okay, all right. So something about the sperm whale is different. Than
Oh,
the normal
there's no
fish.
bladder sac?
I don't know.
What'd you call it?
Swim bladder.
No swim bladder?
They probably still have a swim bladder, but
Yeah, they're
larger fish have stronger swim bladders. Okay.
So if it was a really large fish,
the
like
normal
the Meg,
fish can't go lower than 3,000 feet without bursting the
of
swim
course, that's a
bladder.
normal fish. Look at the Meg. It could eat submarines.
Yeah.
That swim bladder can go as far as it wants. Yeah.
How deep is the Marianas? Huh?
Couple miles.
I spelled it wrong, but Google's going to know what I'm talking about.
Of course.
In your head right now, spell Marianas.
Is that how you say it? The Marianas Trench? That was for the benefit of the audience.
Ah, I see what you're asking. See, Google Google is surprised. That I
Yeah,
spelled it
you
so wrong.
surprised the AI.
36,000 feet.
36,000.
Yeah, so 10
Wow.
times the depth of a sperm whale's average diving.
Yeah, so, okay, now I want you to picture this. You with all of our listeners here. Just picture this for a
And
second.
I just watched Meg, and it's about the same size as 4 sperm whales.
Sure. Totally agree. Now just picture this. A sperm whale, massive whale that they would hunt. Moby Dick, right? Wasn't that a sperm whale? Yeah. Massive whale that they would hunt for their blubber and fight off. They've got teeth. These whales have teeth, okay? And these whales are somehow diving down, what'd you say, 4,000, 3,000 feet?
Yep.
And they're having battles with colossal squid, okay? The fishermen who fish at these depths and drop nets down here have pulled up these massive squids that are bigger than their boat. And when the whales come back, our researchers track these whales. These whales go down with no scars on their face, like their first time ever battle. They go down. They spend how long can they stay down there?
137 minutes.
A long time. A couple hours. And they go down and they come back and they're all bloodied. They're all scarred up. They've got squid pieces hanging out of their mouth because that's what their primary diet is. And they're eating these massive squid that they're like in battle with. And you can imagine them like biting. Okay, again, these whales have teeth. They're chomping on these things, and meanwhile, the tentacles are like fighting for their life and, destroying. And so there are these massive battles that are happening in the bottom of the ocean, what we would consider the bottom of the ocean, at 4,000 feet. So now imagine, you said 10 times that depth in the Marianas Trench.
Yeah, 40,000.
10 times that depth. What do you think lives down there? If massive squid
Nothing. The pressure's so
live
big,
at
they're all
4,000,
dead. What do you think lives out in the deep space?
the even bigger
It's the
things.
same argument. No.
The Meg under the thermocline.
No.
All of the sea creatures.
We've sent stuff down there. So we've sent cameras down there, and it's like the most rudimentary creatures because they're like so much pressure
Sure.
is on them.
Yeah, but they also don't have bladders.
It's literally just an exoskeleton, see-through exoskeleton.
It's like, please don't crush me.
Exactly.
I think when you get to a certain point, this is where science has it wrong. We've had this idea that the deeper you go, the more pressure, because obviously more and more gallons of water on top of you pressing down, right? Well, what if that's not the case? At a certain point, it becomes a bell curve instead of a line.
All of a sudden,
graph.
gravity changes.
And a thermocline happens, and it resets the pressure of the ocean.
By doing what?
That's why they can't break through it, and why the creatures can't break above it, because there's so much pressure on that thermocline. It's keeping it together that nothing can break through that bottom, and even dirt and stuff sits on the bottom of it. But if you can puncture through this thermocline, you can get below that. It's the same thing as you experienced when you went to Mexico. You jumped into a cenote.
I didn't. I was sick at home.
Okay, you were sick at home. Your brother jumped into a cenote, and these cenotes could very well be the opening to a Jurassic World type
Oh my gosh.
land
Jules Verne?
that lives underground, but in this beautiful
Journey to the center of the earth?
exotic, massive ferns, old palm trees, pterodactyls flying around the air,
Atlantis?
and all of these things.
Oh my goodness. You could be right. You could be right.
See, but you didn't go, so you wouldn't have known that.
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I did learn while they were gone is that all the cenotes in Mexico are connected to their septic systems. And so you go diving in there. It's just floating poop at a certain level.
The thermocline level?
The thermocline
Yeah,
level.
yeah. See, it looks clear in all of the beautiful Condé Nast pictures.
It is clear
And-
until you hit a
And then
certain
you
level.
get a certain level where
where the
all
poop
the
floats.
solids are stuck. So if we extrapolate that out to the ocean analogy, that's where all the fish poop would sit too. And below that is where the Meg lives.
This is interesting. Now
And
I'm interested.
Now we're engaged to this
Yes.
episode.
All
All right. Well, this has been a phenomenal introduction to mysterious beasts and where not to find them.
Yes, read
so-
Job 40 and you will be surprised.
You will be. You will be. And so I think, I don't know. Do we want to leave our listeners on a cliff note like this? Have we kind of wrapped it up?
Well, what creatures do we know exist that are crazy like that?
Yeah, that aren't myths,
That aren't myths.
that actually are alive.
So you've heard of the disease elephantitis.
Okay.
Have you heard of an elephant with elephantitis?
Oh my gosh. Keep going.
Here we go.
You're onto something.
Sounds like a mythical creature, right?
Is that not a people disease? I thought that was a people disease.
I think you're right.
Okay.
So I was just speculating.
But it could be. It could. I mean, why? Yeah, you're right. An elephant with elephantitis.
is even more elephantitis than an elephant. Here
Fair
we go.
point. Fair point.
Cliffhanger ended.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting way to end an episode. And as always, I'm honored that your presence is here with us today to bring such insight and joy to the listeners.
Next week, we'll talk about the behemoth.
Oh, the behemoth. Speaking of other beasts
We won't.
that people call an elephant, but with a tail like a cedar. Come on, people.
Oh, man.
Or a giraffe. Come on, people.
Oh, man. For who the mountains yield food for him, where all the wild beasts play.
Yeah, seriously.
Just
I mean,
read Job.
I think that's a Littlefoot creature.
Littlefoot?
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Long necks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Land Before Time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
a sauropod.
You
or
just
whatever
get to
they're called.
the book of Job and you skip to where God starts talking about all the creations he's made.
Yeah.
And you will be impressed.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you all as always tuning into another episode here as we kick off the new year and
As my
continue
nephews
on.
would say.
And as Sizzly Steve's nephews would say,
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Ana Vivo podcast. We welcome your feedback and ideas. You can learn more about us by simply Googling the word Ana Vivo. This podcast is supported by listeners like you. I am a licensed real estate broker with Compass Real Estate and a nationwide real estate matchmaker. We consult with you for free, find and vet the right real estate professional that specializes in the area and niche you need, are paid by that professional, and they get clients like yourself who want and need their unique specialty or winning track record. If you or someone you know is in the market to buy or sell real estate anywhere in the U.S., don't simply web search the highest paying advertiser. Let us use our licensed experience to find and vet the real and best professional for you. It costs you nothing but a phone call or email with me and has saved my clients financially and emotionally. I'd be honored to serve, and you can reach me direct by email at tim.c.miller@outlook.com. And as always, to God be the glory.